Sorry, I just forgot how this works. Hello. Testing.
What's up?
Hey, man. I'm here. Got all my
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna
settings.
try the phone again. How do I sound from like right here?
They sound great.
So last time I listened to the recording and I was kind of loud. Do I sound loud?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can do is look at the size of this little circle, which actually is probably a pretty good visual representation if I really like focus on it. And I could do the same thing because, like, really, we want to be.
The
Yeah, we
same.
could both be blowing it out, but we've also kind of, if we're in a reasonable space, we want to be close to each other, which is always like the difficulty. I can see it when I'm doing the editing, and I have no idea how to really get that right because you have to basically get that right at the time of recording. We've had some really bad ones where like one of it's usually one of us is like way off from like the other two people usually in the or just sometimes one person that's in the stream or podcast, and it really makes for like worse audio. That's really the number one thing that contributes to us having bad audio.
Right.
I feel like I'm
But I don't sound
I'm
loud. Did I
on the show.
sound louder last time or no?
I mean, I have no idea how loud I sound. You're at the volume that I put on the
Right.
freaking my headphones, my monitors. So who knows? But I'll try to keep it so like I don't have less of the bubble than you. If I mean, I can kind of see a pretty good visual representation.
All right. Well, hold on.
Um,
How, how about this?
I could get closer. You sound the same
How,
either way.
sound the same. Okay, so it doesn't matter how
Yeah,
far away I am.
yeah, within reason. Yeah.
Okay. Right on.
Have you talked to Brian?
Did I
Now
actually?
this
Did
the
I
sec
leave?
has entered the into the game. Um, are you there?
Yeah, but
Are you here?
yeah.
So
I'm gonna
I'm gonna
leave and
leave and
come
come
back.
back.
I'm
Okay.
super.
Okay. All right.
What the?
You left and came back, and then it was that. Okay, there it is. It's fixed. I mean,
Wait, can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you just fine.
That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. How about now?
Yep.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
Hey, have you talked to Brian?
Yeah, he texted me like 15 minutes ago, said he'll be here. I don't even have StreamYard on my screen anymore. So is this working? Can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're still here.
I accidentally looked to go see if Brian texted me back, and so then I couldn't hear you. That's when I left. But when I opened up the link again, it opened up like two at the same time, and now I closed them both out, and somehow it's still working.
Well, the original one that was added to the chat never left, so it's fine.
Okay.
I think it's trying. I think it's trying to make it work on the back end
Okay.
the best it can.
As long as it works. And now I've got a thing that says enter studio, and I don't want to do that because that's probably just in again, right? So I don't know how to get back to the original one, but we'll see.
Nope.
Wait,
you're good. You're good for right now. Okay. Yeah, just play around. I mean, Brian's not here yet. Since you can't see, Brian's not here yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Weird. Okay. Let's see if I go. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, go to your. Okay.
Yeah, I went to my tabs.
Yeah, tabs. That's what I'm trying to think.
Yeah. Okay, so this. Okay. Okay, good. I just want to be able to mute in case. Yeah, I got a laptop. I've still got the same laptop I've always had. We've had. It's just it's so fucked now that I don't even like using it. So I gotta get another one.
Yeah, I just honestly, I'm a couple. Well, they're both running Linux distros, but I'm on my old like bedroom laptop. That's just been a PC because it's been stationary for like 5 years, and actually it's been longer than that. I mean, it's been on this desk. Anyways, long story short, I bought a new business laptop just for like that I don't want to fuck up or eat around or like load anything on, like, you know what I mean? And just have it work very well and not be clogged up and not get jacked up and this thing's missing keys and stuff, and that's fine. It works. It works slow, but it freezes up sometimes. It crashes, but it works. I mean, hey, keep them
I need to get a cheap
separated.
One just to like print invoices. That's all I need it for. You know what I mean?
Oh, pawn shops. Yeah, pawn shops. That's probably your best bet.
Yeah.
You probably cop $100 business laptop easy.
Yeah. Brian, what's up, man?
Brian? What's up, boys?
Living the dream.
Yeah, right on.
What's that in your background, Brian?
What's that?
What's that in your background?
Which thing?
The poster, the TIE Fighter.
Yeah, that's for the game. The TIE Fighter.
The game from the 90s.
Yep.
Oh my God, that was like one of my most formative games ever in my childhood. I love that game so much.
No, same here, dude. Like
TIE Fighter was the shit.
Yep. It was in some ways still is my life. So yeah. Right on.
Yeah, sorry, you've got a whole series of is that based on that then? The TIE Fighter Renegade?
Oh yeah. Because Rob and I, like, that's, we really connect on that, like, because we fucking love that game to death. I mean, that game is still so great. Yeah, that's where all that comes from.
I had no idea. I've never played that game. I don't know.
No, right on.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys got any issue? I've got a rant I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's slightly, but I don't want to tell you guys because I think it would be better as a surprise.
Okay.
Nice. All right.
So can I do that for a minute first, and then it is probably slightly related to our topic.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me. Yeah, totally. We can let this run wherever it runs. So
after we're done with fascism, we got to get back to something weird. But
are we still talking about fascism? What are we talk? Is it?
yeah, I think that's the plan overall.
Okay.
Yeah, I did get that email from a listener where we could certainly go
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Let me find that.
Yeah.
I'm already ready. I'm sorry. I'm already down with it. I don't even know what the email's about. So.
Well, Brian, can you got it handy? Can you read it out loud in a bit?
Yeah. I'll do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I read it quick, but I don't remember all of it. So
what's it on roughly?
So the subject
The hit show?
is prophecy and space Nazis. I mean, he was the listener was responding to the episode we did last time, like, and it's actually pretty interesting just how he said prophecy because like we literally started talking about Pope Leo the 13th like a week before suddenly there's a Pope Leo the 14th. Anyway, it's a good little email.
All right, yeah. After my rant, let's do that next.
Yeah, that'll lead us into the conversation. So
cool.
Okay.
Penguin, you want to do the intro?
Yeah. Do we? Is it the regular intro for, or is it just no? We don't do the algorithm localism thing for this, do we?
No, just do the short version with the void.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't think so. It's been so long. I sometimes forget the patterns, and it's all just stuff we made up. So I mean, it's not like I can have
hey, listen, the points don't matter and the rules are made up. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, really. We just winged it once, and it just made that our rule. So okay, all right. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Agora Podcast. It's time for another episode of Enter the Void with Dr. Brian Sovereign. Of course, I have Sek here. Sek, how's it going?
Not bad. Tired, old, and busy.
Long day.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. Yep.
What about you?
I'm sure you had a long day. Now it's one of the days where you're coming in and recording after a long day's work. So I can only imagine how hot it was out there. I had a scorcher, and I wasn't even like working.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be sundowning here in a minute. You guys won't even be able to understand what I'm saying. I laugh. I'm making a joke, but I definitely, my brain and my language skills don't work as well when I'm tired, for sure. So this should be interesting.
Well, I hope you're well hydrated. Got a lot of electrolytes and whatnot. I'm sure you crave those.
Oh yeah, I chug water and caffeine all day. So yeah.
What's up, Brian?
Brian, how you doing?
Doing good. I know this won't release on this day, but this is one of my more unholy days. That being Lag Bomer, which is a little celebration of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who it is believed wrote the Zohar, and that's of course one of my favorite books of all time. So I definitely celebrate this one every year. So it's been a good day. Bonfires, latkes, lots of other wild activities that only Kabbalists, or well, no, not just Kabbalists. I think a lot of people would appreciate, but I won't mention those here, at least not right now. So,
well, pour one out for the homie.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, for sure. I was wondering if you had a bonfire for that or not.
Yeah. It's honestly, I think the reason, so there's stated reasons why they do a bonfire, but I think the reason for the bonfire is because, the claim is that Shimon Bar Yochai and his son Eliezer came out of the cave after 13 years, or after 12 years, actually. They did end up staying 13, but he comes after 12 years. And when they walk out, their eyes are just like Superman. They're like setting everything on fire. It's just fire blazing like out of their eyes. And basically God says, get back in the cave. What are you trying to do? Destroy my world? I mean, that's pretty much literally apparently what God said. And so they go back into the cave for a year. And then they come back out. But anyway, every time I see ever since I was a little kid and we'd have the bonfire and whatever, I'm always just imagining like these two old Jews just coming out and just setting everything on fire with their eyes. It's pretty wild, pretty metal, honestly.
You're too powerful.
Yeah. I know. Where's
is
God? Couldn't he stop him?
Now, is that something celebrated by Jews overall, or is that mostly Kabbalists?
No, it's usually it's gotten to the point that it's Jews overall, because even even like, and certainly non-Kabbalistic Judaism is probably the dominant, though that's starting to change. But that's been the dominant for, well, a few hundred years now. They still respect Shimon Bar Yochai because he was a Tanaim. He, was behind the Mishnah, which would end up being with the Talmud. And anyway, all that history. So yeah, people overall still celebrate it different ways. Different groups of Jews celebrate it different ways, but always a good time. It's meant to be a happy day, which that's actually kind of rare for Jewish holidays. So I always like this one.
Sounds vaguely familiar, but then once you started describing it, I'm totally lost on it.
Yeah, right.
I get the gist of the holiday. It's the trying to pronounce Hebrew that I'm never going to be able to do. I can't.
Yeah, no, you have to have reptile genetics to do it. That's why it has to, it's supposed to roll off the tongue, but the tongue has to be forked. You see,
anyway. And he's got horns under that hat too.
Exactly. Yeah, let's keep that on.
All right. Well. All right, so I got a couple of sort of announcements, and then some of them are related to our topic. Number one, we found out we're having a boy. So anybody that
wow, congratulations, dude!
Woo, congrats!
Awesome.
Building an army.
Building an army. Small of my genetics.
An heir to the kingdom
one day. So yeah, that's nice. Found that out the other day. I'm obviously I'm happy either way, but I've got a house full of girls, so one boy's a change of pace.
Yeah, it's nice when there's heirs to Sekistan, though. Like that's
heck yeah.
That's
good. Hey, I got warrior princesses over here, bro.
I love it.
My daughters are definitely sufficient heirs. We'll say that. I feel sorry for whoever crosses them, but yeah. So we're real happy about that, and everything was healthy. They did the full-on anatomy ultrasound and checked all the stuff, and so everything was good with that. So we're real happy with that. Also, this just struck me as funny and absurd. So Trump, he's having people stuffed in a van and sent to El Salvador for writing op-eds and protesting Israel, right? And the claim is, well, they're supporting terrorism. But then, meanwhile, this guy's on like live TV giving a hand job to the leader of Al Qaeda. I heard that today, and it really amused me. The Jelani there, the head of Al Qaeda, and also the leader of Syria now, they're having a bro down on TV, and meanwhile he's stuffing. I don't know. Apparently, I'm the only one that finds this funny.
No, it's hilarious. Go ahead, Penguin.
I shouldn't laugh because it's awful, but it's just the absurdity of it just makes me chuckle. It's like some college kid writing an op-ed, that's a terrorist, right? But this guy that's literally been wanted for terrorism and has a $10 million reward on his head, well, that guy's just fine, right? He was literally like, might as well have been giving him a hand job. He was just like, this guy's so young and strong and handsome, and I'm like, what fucking timeline are we in? I blame you for going to CERN, Brian. That's why we never let reptiles at CERN. You know what I mean? But so
yeah, we did fuck things up, but yes,
you fucked it all up. I saw a headline the other day from like 10 years ago that apparently they had to shut down CERN because a weasel got into it. A weasel, and was like chewing on power lines, and they had to shut the thing down. I'm like, oh well, that's why they the timeline switched right then.
Well, I mean, at least, unlike the Black Death, if we're blaming the rodents, like they got it right this time. Last time they blamed the cats, and effectively keeping the Black Death from spreading because the rodents' natural predators were wiped out. So okay, well, as long as we're blaming the right creature this time. No, I'm kidding. I don't want any creatures hurt.
Hey, hold on to the Black Death because I got another thing I want to bring up that's related to that. I have a question for it. But before that, so I recorded a thing and Penguin didn't put it out, so blame him. But
What?
So what I'm saying probably doesn't matter, and it's never going to change anything. But I still have to say it. And this. Benjamin Netanyahu is correct. Okay, so everybody's uncomfortable and feeling awkward, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Benjamin Netanyahu, for my entire adult life, for the past 25 years, has been saying that Iran is 5 years away from making a nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So he's technically correct, but this is just like the perfect propaganda because it's true, but the lie is in the omission. So what Iran has is a highly technical civilian nuclear program. They have nuclear energy, and they've proven they've mastered the fuel cell. They can enrich uranium up to whatever it is, 90-something%. So they've proven they can do that, but they've never actually built any kind of nuclear weapon. That's like any country with a nuclear program is probably 5 years away from making a nuclear weapon if you just figure out how to enrich it that much further and put it on a missile. Now
it's called the breakout period, and they definitely have the rocketry. They have the ballistic missiles for it. We know that.
Sure.
They're probably pretty sophisticated.
They're probably less than 5 years away from making a nuclear weapon, but they're not trying to make a nuclear weapon. They haven't for the past 25 years that Netanyahu's been saying this.
Doesn't Japan like by policy maintain themselves at like months of a breakout period, but will never do it? But they're all
there's tons of countries that have the same situation. Yeah, absolutely. So because we are on the precipice of a war with Iran, it seems like that's what we're gearing up for. I just felt I needed to say that, and I'm assuming that probably most of our audience is aware of this. They probably listen to a lot of the same, foreign policy shows and such that I do. But that's what they mean when they say that he's 5 years. They're 5 years away. It's not that they're not ready to make. They're not trying to make anything of the sort or any kind of missiles and anything of the sort, but they have the ability to. It's like, listen, I've got a gun sitting right over there with a fucking a mag sitting right, 2 mags sitting right over there. I'm 30 seconds away from committing a murder, right? But I'm not. I have no intention of committing a murder. The gun's over there. Like there's no. It's the same idea. You know what I mean? Like, so if ever you hear anybody say that, be like, yeah, you're right. But here's what that fucking means. So I doubt I'm going to stop a war with Iran, but and I hope the talks go well. But I just felt the need to get that out there. I
think as of like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I think trajectory has changed like drastically with as far as the war with Iran stuff. I mean, in the span of about 2 weeks, it's coming out that Trump is not communicating with the Netanyahu government. That Trump is meeting with these Gulf countries, but negotiating directly and unilaterally with Hamas, and with the Syrian government. And I'll be the first to say that, like, I understand, like, my position on the Syrian government, and on Abu Muhammad Jalani. I mean, it puts me at odds with most of the people that sort of agree with me as an American on like foreign policy issues, and that's fine. Like, there's going to be always like disagreements and stuff like that, but taken as a whole, and I'm very much hopeful for Syria, but after what they go through.
What is your position on Jalani?
I'm bullish. Hope he makes Syria good. I mean, honestly, I've seen nothing but good
I mean,
signs coming from. It's been
aren't they slaughtering Christians and Alawites like right
no,
as of a
no,
few weeks
they're
ago?
not. It's an absolute no. There's no zero evidence of that whatsoever. They've been saying that since before.
I
And
mean,
just nothing's
their motto is Christians to Beirut, Alawites to the grave. That was the motto of the Syrian resistance.
As far as I know, there are no.
Listen to me.
There were Christians.
Listen, fuck Assad right in his mouth. Fuck that dude. I have no love for that. But like, I don't understand. I don't think putting in Ladenites in power at the behest of the CIA is necessarily an improvement.
I mean, he put on a suit. He's saying he wants to bring free markets to Syria. He doesn't seem to be massacring anybody, as far as I know. A lot of far right posters on Twitter have been saying, oh, they're slaughtering Druze and the Alawites. Well, I don't know about the Alawites. They're slaughtering Druze and Christians. They're slaughtering Christians. They're slaughtering Christians. And this Christians thing has absolutely been a hoax, because they had Christians posting like, we're happy.
I mean, I'm not hearing this from far right people. I'm hearing this from like Trita Parsi, the guy that wrote the book on Syria and Iran. You know what I mean? Like
I'm hearing it from like Jack Posobiec and Cernovich and people like that. I haven't seen any evidence that Christians have been slaughtered. Personally, I'd like to see the evidence that Christians are being slaughtered in Syria right now, because it doesn't seem to be.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's like a government policy. Listen, you got to understand. Like, might not even be this dude. Like, he's got a whole like crew of fanatics who are out and about, if so to speak, and it might not even be like the new government policy to do so, but there's been quite a number of like murders and hangings and whatnot reported. Now it might be just kind of like mob violence, you know, like not state sanctioned or whatever the thing, but that's definitely.
If you're familiar with the past, if you're familiar with the past 13 years, 14 years, no, let's see, 15 years in Syria. I mean, after the culmination. Yeah. The culmination of the civil war and everything, but he seems to be building a perfectly comparable to any other state pluralistic government as much as anybody else. I don't really see the issue here, especially if
he has to have changed some, because he just signed over the natural resources of the country to American corporations and gave Golan Heights to Israel. So I'm sure he's not a socialist like he was.
Yeah, he believes in free market. He's not an Arab socialist, which is essentially a national socialist, like the governments of Hafiz Assad and Saddam Hussein and all these people before him. These backwards policies are there. Yeah, he seems to be he seems to be comparable to any reasonable government, more comparable than a lot of the predecessor governments, Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, for better or for worse. Not of our time.
The House of
our time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just saying, all things considered, and honestly, puts the Taliban to shame, makes them look like backwards cave dwellers. Like, really, honestly, the Taliban were surprising what they did, and then look at them right now. They look like absolute barbarians compared to these people. Where's the free market economy and
well, listen, the Bin Ladenites always were cosmopolitan, and that they always thought of the Taliban as backwards hillbillies. That was always the difference between Al Qaeda.
Well, they're Pashtuns. They are. I was just thinking about this the other day. The Pashtuns are like they choose to be tribal. They've been exposed to civilization for 4,000 or 5,000 years. But Syria has been a civilized place since probably longer than almost any country in the whole world. Syria's probably been civilized for like 6,000 years.
Right.
And absolutely has. That's the oldest recorded city. It's still inhabited, for all I understand, which is Aleppo. But I will say this.
I mean, at the very least, I hope the Syrian people do fine. That's all I'm saying. But
yeah.
This to me shows that Al Qaeda and terrorism was never really a threat to the U.S. empire.
They're
perfectly fine with working with these people if it works in the empire's interests. That's the crazy conclusion you can draw from this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this was always. I've been thinking about this a lot lately too. This was always just so dubious. I mean, we all know that there was not a war on terror because they hate us for our freedoms, and that was the basis for the entire last 25 years. Is they hate us for how great we are. They hate us for how awesome we are. And no, let's see. I don't know. They carried out an agenda that was planned before 9/11. I don't think 9/11 was necessarily fake, but hey, they I think you could have predicted that a big terrorist attack was coming. I don't think there was any surprise. If you were around in the 90s, I was even at my age, like I was aware enough that you could. I think everybody had the general idea there was going to be a very large terrorist attack one day. I mean, after Oklahoma City, plus the embassies and the USS Cole, like it was bound to happen. It was bound to probably happen from the. I've looked at a lot of 9/11 coverage, and people had a pretty good idea who it was. So, but the point is the agenda carried out after that was already somehow planned by think tanks and announced before 9/11 ever occurred. So, and it was planned by people who believe in the supremacy of the state of Israel because of who they are. The neoconservatives were that was their pretty much central plank. But aside from that, without going into the whole history of the neoconservative movement, which we probably could and should do one day, although I think I've heard it covered by a couple podcasters that we're probably all aware of. Despite what I have to say about Jelani, okay, I understand. Everybody from an anarcho-capitalist to an anti-war Scott Horton type to a Buchananite, whatever. Yeah, you're going to probably disagree with those guys, but the rest of the whole thing, taken as a whole, this whole past 2 weeks of complete reversal with Israel and inverting the whole relationship, going full hog with Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, with UAE, with Qatar. And I actually said something offensive in a group chat. I forgot who was president, and I said straight up this. I think Saudi Arabia, UAE governments, I put them in the same category in Israel. Let's see, all the, I don't know, the war crimes, the arms deals, the authoritarian governments. And I don't say that lightly because, authoritarian governments. But yeah, just cozying up to these countries and have all this money flowing, all this capital flowing, all these arms flowing in the other direction. No, I don't want to see the Gulf countries. I don't want to see Arab or Muslim, especially Gulf countries, become the new Israel. That's not what we want here. If we just invert the relationship, like I always say about hierarchies and inverting hierarchies, that's dumb, right? I don't want to see an inversion of the Jew Muslim thing. I don't want to see Gulf countries, which are uniquely situated among Muslim majority countries. I don't want to see them to become the new Israel for the next 50, 60, 70 years at the expense of how untold. I'm sure the already just looking at the past, not even the potential future, at the cost of many more lives than have been lost in Palestine, to be 100% honest. So no, I'm not too happy about the rest of the thing. Syria, hey, I think I'm bullish on Syria, but the rest of it, I'm not too happy about, actually.
Well, that kind of Brian, do you have anything to add to that, man?
Oh boy. There's a lot that I could. I think it's so the first thing to say is the present American administration, I think, is almost completely run by Silicon Valley at this stage. Not that Trump was necessarily, in his 2016 administration that he was run that way, but I think that he is now. And the amount of Saudi money being put into Silicon Valley should not be ignored. And to some degree, I'm not surprised that there is a dramatic change, that there is a bit of an inversion going on, just because there is that closeness, not just with Silicon Valley, but also with the entertainment industry, which, these are all very much kissing cousins in a very real way. So that said, I'm really not surprised by this. I do think that, Zach, like what you brought up earlier about Iran, that they've been trying to start that war for a good long while. They, being they, them, those, whatever. And amazingly, and I despise social media with every fiber of my being. But that was almost the thing that I could point to that kept it from happening at any given moment over the past 15 years. Because people were openly, and I mean like everyday people and, you know, journalists, and not like your Glenn Greenwalds or, you know, and half these people have, you know, become scum as well. But, you know, I mean, like your everyday journalists, whatever, like everybody was just coming out and saying, false flag, false flag, false flag. Like we, you know, we know the score at this point. Yeah, I mean, and it's an interesting point about the nuclear program that you mentioned earlier. I mean, Israel has tried to put a stop to that since 2010 with the introduction of Stuxnet. That was absolutely, you know, I mean, that's genuine cyber warfare where you are weaponizing software, you know, malware to, you know, basically to stall nuclear development, you know. And I agree with you. It's not necessarily about weapons. There's some, and I mean, it would be a massive conversation to get into, you know, and certainly it's one we could get into at some point someday. But there's some crazy, you know, so cyber warfare, I think, is actually what's putting us, we're already in World War III, in my opinion. It's just something being fought silently. It's not a Cold War, it's cyber war right now. And it's happening around a bunch of different parties. Okay. And I would argue you could almost point at 2010 and the introduction of Stuxnet into the Iranian nuclear program as the start of that cyber war. And, you know, the funny thing is that, like, and I'm trying to kind of bring this all sort of full circle, because Silicon Valley, you know, again, I think they're very much in power. Whether it's, you know, Elon Musk or it's, you know, Mark Andreessen or, you know, whoever, you know, they rely upon stability. They need stability. I think that's also partly why we've seen like a pretty big 180 on the tariff situation with other countries, including China. Now, granted, you know, okay, yeah, they're not 165%, but they're still like 30%, which is ridiculously high, and still has tremendous impact. You know, like, but there are 180s happening like we're talking about here. And, you know, to me, and it's not just because I'm quote unquote a tech guy, as I've been known for over 10 years now. You know, I look at that and see what's happening there. And I think to some degree, this could be like Silicon Valley's play to create some kind of stability, to have some kind of stability that they can rely on. And they're best friends. And you know, I hate this phrase, but sometimes it's true. Follow the money, and that's Saudi Arabia. UAE is a whole other, you know, situation. I mean, UAE is basically trying to be the USA in the 1980s, which was a pretty good time. I was there. But I've also been to UAE, and I can tell you that that their vision of an American 1980s is electroplated. It's chintzy, it's cheap, and you can feel it, and you can, you know, you feel the authoritarianism, I'm trying to think of what word I want for that. But
oh my God, it's an aesthetic nightmare.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
so
stand
bad.
the Emirates. I will never step foot in Dubai. I cannot imagine. I mean, just the idea, like when someone mentions Dubai on social media, not to mention not watching a bunch of videos of influencers. I mean, one thing, it's a city with like 10,000 influencers, which that's a whole nother thing. But like, not only would I not consume, like, it's just an aesthetic nightmare for me. I have this. People tell me, hey, why did you go to Dubai? Like, it's the last place on earth. And that in Vegas and Dubai far ahead of Vegas is the last place on earth I care to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's cultural decadence,
it's or
it's decadence at its worst, and that's the problem. Is like it's not even cultural. There is no culture there,
and it's cheap. It's chintzy.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not be cheap.
Yeah.
It might be very expensive, but it's like it's I don't know. There's just nothing to it.
Yeah, that's why I use the word electroplated. Like, okay, it might look like gold, but it's not real gold. It's just kind of like cheaply covered in it. So yeah, it's an insane situation over there. Again, I do think
No wonder Trump loves it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's his whole MO. I mean, just go to Atlantic City. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think we're heading into World War III. That's been going, and I think we've been heading for that since 2010. In some ways, like I said, as far as cyber warfare, that has already started. And I think that, you know, Iran might be one of the, you know, the touch points and I hate to use such a simple word, where that's going to start. And that's been going on for some time. Zach, what do you got?
Let me see if you guys can help me like sort of parse something out, since we're kind of talking Trump, and this kind of relates to our overall topic of fascism.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so listen, going back to the Bush years, and I was a young man, a young radical, right? The whole time I was screaming, he's gonna, he's gonna cancel the elections. He's going to institute martial law. He's going to, suspend habeas corpus, all this kind of stuff. And then same thing when Obama came into power. I said the same thing. And listen, this wasn't like hysteria at the time. There's a lot of like legitimate reasons to think this. They were setting a lot of weird legal precedent. It was a very, it's post 9/11. A lot of crazy authoritarianism, surveillance, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, here we fucking go. And I was a young anarchist, and I was a young conspiracy kook, and but I was screaming to anyone who would listen that this was going to happen, but not for no reason. Like, there's a lot of reasons to think that, right? But then, like, shortly through the Obama years, I'm like, so it just sort of like clicked, like, oh, they're never going to do that. They're just going to slow creep. They don't need to keep one guy in power. The same people are still in power. They can rotate out whatever, tyrant they want. And, I'd already kind of believed that, the U.S. was sort of a fascist state already, and all, so I had this like opinion of like, basically every one of these presidents is fascist. And so I was like, oh, so, I don't really need it. A lot of that's just sort of hysteria. It's never really going to happen that way. They're never going to like openly declare martial law. They're just going to slowly crank the gear. They're going to slow, keep cranking down. And every president's just going to be slightly worse than the last, right? And then so you get to Trump, and, all the liberals is like, oh, he's fucking Hitler. He's this, he's that. And I'm looking at a lot of the things that they're pointing to that he's doing, and I'm like, these are not different in kind than in any other president. To me, especially his last term, at least, I'm like, oh, he's basically Bill Clinton in the 90s. Like, this isn't like he's different in the way he speaks about these things, but he didn't really. I'm like, this is just Bush or Cheney or Clinton or any of these asshats. He didn't seem to me to be like a unique evil. Like, yeah, he's a tyrant, and yeah, he's grabbing more power just like every president does. And a lot of things there, even the stuff they were bringing him to court for, and like every one of these fucking people does it. And like even now, they're like, oh, he's basically selling the presidency. You can get the president's ear if you pay $5 million to go to dinner at Mar-a-Lago. That's corruption. And I'm like, do you think I can go talk to Obama? No, Obama's listening to his donors too. This is just how the system works, right? So I've never been like a Trump hysteric, like he's awful. He's had a few decent instincts, I think. But to me, he just kind of seemed like any other just fucking politician. They're all corrupt. They're all bastards. So I kind of rolled my eyes, and Biden did a lot of terrible shit. And
hold on, I want to interrupt a sec, because I know you probably might make a good point. But I want to say that I think there is something that's uniquely grating about the Trump hysterics, where it's just so I don't even know how to exactly put it into words, but it's something about the Trump hysterics that's just so almost hypocritical. Like, people are just so revolted by Trump the guy, that it's just every little thing, and it's sometimes the most inane little things, just set people off about Trump. And it's like,
I think a lot of it is he's more belligerent, and he says he does loudly what other people do quietly, and I think that's all there is to it. You know what I mean? Like, he's just bombastic rhetoric, and he's like, oh, we're just gonna go fucking steal the oil from Syria. Like, why wouldn't we do that? You're not supposed to say that. When
I guess he's sort of Yeah, he doesn't, but he also doesn't wrap ideas up with like intellectualism and this kind of obfuscation. He's not a technocrat. He doesn't like technocrats, and something about a certain class of people that can value their education and maybe their sort of their you know, credentialed.
Sure. Most
Their,
other
their
presidents
credentials.
wrap up their
Their
imperialism in flowery language about humanitarian causes, and
yeah
he does not.
yeah.
So I saw that, and I saw it at the time, and even coming up into this next election, I was not like a Trump hysteric. You know, I saw people that thought he was the devil. I saw people that thought he was fucking Jesus, and I'm like, he's just a fucking politician. He's just another guy. So, I said all that to say this fucking particular this time around, this administration, I don't know, man. Like, I could be like paranoid, I guess, or hysteric, but there's a lot of things that make me really fucking nervous. Okay. And my wife and I just the other day were like, were all those hysterical liberals, were they fucking onto something? Because, man, he's really expanding executive power at an alarming rate. He's like, as for whatever you want to say about Biden, and I probably said it at the time, he's worse on speech and the First Amendment than Biden ever was. I don't know if Harris would have been stuffing people in vans for protesting Israel. I don't know that would have. They would have probably cracked out or called Zuckerberg and had him dial back some numbers or whatever thing. But they weren't. I mean, I don't know if they would have gone so far as to stuff people in vans and send them to a dungeon in El Salvador because they dared to protest a foreign government. There's been a number. I mean, they're changing. They're making it so you can't get a government contract if you've ever in your life. You have to swear an oath that you will never boycott Israel in order to get a government contract under this administration. Again, you say he's not a technocrat. Well, he's surrounded himself by all of them. He's got all these technocrats and Silicon Valley guys around him, building the surveillance grid. All the Palantir's getting all Palantir, which sells all the surveillance technology to the CIA, is getting all sorts of cushy contracts from this guy. He's pushing through Real ID, which no one could fucking do before him, because every time a president tried, the population said, "Go fuck yourself. We're not doing that." And he's getting it done because he's got a cult behind him. And I don't know, man. There's one out of 100 things he does, I like. Like, I hope he gets a deal with the fucking Iran. I hope he gets a deal with Ukraine and Russia. And anytime a war is stopped, I'm for that, and I'll applaud him for that. But there's been a lot of really big authoritarian moves that. So listen, fuck our system and its checks and balances or whatever, right? But like, to grant when, like, we don't want a strong executive either, though. We don't want an executive that says fuck the Congress and the judicial. That's significant. That could be much worse. Okay. And
No, I think that's the number one thing we want. I mean, all things we can critique the system of checks and balances, but I mean, the mate that we don't want is a runaway executive, and the executive is, I mean, executive power has increased president by
under
president.
every president, right?
I mean,
But
in
he
some
seems
ways
to be
or another.
taking the ball and running with it in terms of that. And
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like, he's getting, I mean, everything that he's done is getting tied up in courts. I mean, yes, he put the person into the detention facility in Louisiana for not the most egregious one, that the young woman that wrote the op-ed and everything. That he put into what was it, like 6 weeks of detention in Louisiana, and she's finally out on bail, mind you. And some of the El Salvador stuff, obviously, pretty creepy. I mean, and it's just a potential. Like, you ramp that up times 10, and you think there's not going to be any false positives or something. I mean, yes, you send some convicted rapists to, I don't know, none of this is really particularly necessary. Long story short, not going to go into the morality of or deportations or not or whatever, but no, I mean, I think a lot of what he's doing is
deportations overall. Biden was worse on deportations.
Obama was worse than Biden, I believe.
Yeah, Obama beat both of them. He sent more people out of the country than Trump ever could dream of. My issue, I mean, listen, I have an issue with deportations, and I'm not a immigration restrictionist at all. What's worse, it's not necessarily the deportations, it's the chilling effect and the attacks on protests and speech on behalf of Israel. That is,
it's pretty naked too.
It's blatant. It's completely blatant. So I don't know. Me and the wife have been and all the tariff stuff is fucking terrifying. He's, fucking up the economy, and also he's increasing the debt and the military, which every fucking politician does. And there's like one or two good things, but for every one or two good things, and there's like a 10 or 100 things that are just absolutely fucking horrifying. Far worse than like a lot of presidents in my lifetime, to where me and the wife are like, wait a minute, were these fucking hysterical liberals right? Like, are we the assholes here? Like, is this guy an actual fucking threat? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the moves he's making are like, that's how fucking like coups happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a dangerous fucking precedent,
Yeah, I mean, a part of me feels he's taking. I love your comparison to Clinton in the 90s, because a lot of people look at like Clinton in the 90s as a time of economic prosperity, and of course, historians would say, well, wait a minute, he just inherited like the bit of boon that Reagan and Bush Senior basically had implemented for 12 years.
No, it's more complicated than that. Like they take the economy and then slowly worked it out of the bottom of the toilet, and then finally got it up to where it was decent. And then yes, Clinton came in or whatever. But
right, and he just like he got to look good, But I agree, right, like exactly. All of this stuff, there's way more nuance within that.
Right.
But I think what Trump is actually inheriting, and you hit it this sec as well, like the digital ID thing. This is something the world is yet to experience ever. It is such a game changer, because it's not just like, okay, a more efficient passport system or a more efficient driver's license system or something along those lines. This is the first time that you will have an ID attached to you that will follow you literally anywhere you go, and can attach, via to data on servers, to everything you've ever done. And to everything you do. This is unlike anything humans have ever experienced. And this is a framework of control and power that I don't think people really know what to do with, but there are very intelligent people, perhaps not ethical, but intelligent people, that are there very close to that seat of power, that can see what they would like to do with this sort of thing. And I think that's something to be very concerned about. Now, as far as like, were the liberals right, in being concerned about this? I don't know, because it feels like, and Sec, I mean, you can tell me if you felt differently, it feels like the other side, whatever the other side was, left or right, depending upon who was in power, was always hysterical, of whoever was in. But regardless, we are entering an undiscovered country. We are entering like an uncharted time, because there are now frameworks that exist around us that have never existed before, at least in, modern human history. And it's a very weird thing, bringing up the Israel thing. I mean, my, theory has long been held that Israel is supported basically. I mean, it's funny because we're talking about going into like World War III, or like, going after Iran, and all of this. I mean, my long held theory is that World War I was just to destabilize and put an end to the Ottoman Empire. That's what World War I was completely about. I mean, there might have been some fringe benefits. I say that sardonically and sadistically. But that was the plan. And World War II, of course, was just a continuation of World War I. World War I never really ended. I suppose an argument could be made that World War II never really ended. But there is some strange obsession, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, and it would probably diverge into a whole other type of conversation. There's some strange obsession with making sure that Muslim countries do not come together and work together again. And a part of me worries that, like, or if I was just to say something quickly, I'd be like, well, what are they afraid of? Like another Islamic golden age where there's like this tremendous time of like human flourishing and like human knowledge expanding and all of this. Are they afraid of the Sufis? I have a very serious mystical bent, if people didn't pick that up from earlier. Are they worried about that and they're going to lose their materialist control or something like that? I mean, I don't know, I couldn't say exactly. But it's weird that it seems like none of the obsessions have changed. Not much has really changed at all. The digital ID system has been a dream for a very long time. It was Hitler's dream as well, when he worked with IBM back in the 40s to create what was called Diamag, which was like, one of the original computer-based, very primitive computers, but one of the original computer-based identification systems. And all this stuff is just like now it's really possible. And it's not only really possible because the framework's there. It's like, no, people willingly want it. They want, and hey, I get it. I like the convenience too, when I can pay for shit with my watch and not have to pull out my wallet or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I understand the love of convenience and all this. But the very real difference today is that people seem to really want this. And maybe if the leftists were picking up on anything and they're freaking out over Trump, if they did pick up on something, maybe what they picked up on was that the system that they grew up in was falling apart and there's nothing that they could do about it. And it wasn't Trump bringing it on necessarily either. I mean, something that, and look, the most important thing anybody can do when they go online is run by this rule. And the rule is, and I tell this to everybody, okay, because you say, well, I don't even know what's real. Like, we heard some differing opinions here when we were talking, I don't know what's real online. Okay, well, here's where, when you go online, everything is fake until proven otherwise. That is the mindset you need to go online with. Okay. So,
welcome to my world. That's how I live. Even when I'm not online, everything.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. And that's and that's a whole other conversation. It's a participatory universe and we can agree to disagree or whatever on that. But anyway, yes. Right. Okay. So, but a common thing that's happening is, and look, you can see it in the cultural or in the entertainment zeitgeist, certainly in the US, but also in other countries. Like, what's one of the most popular games in the world right now? It's Helldivers 2. This game is fucking like fascist celebratory so goddamned hard, and it's a great game. Like, as a gamer, I can appreciate it as the game. But this is my point, is that, like, wait a minute, why are people being attracted to this and not like hurling when they see it or saying like, holy shit, this doesn't match with what I want in life and all this stuff. And I think a big part of it is that people have just gotten to the point. You have the leftists who are like, oh shit, everything we knew is falling apart. And then you have, people on the other side, and I'm not saying this is all of them, but there's a good chunk of them who are like, well, you know what? Democracy and all this shit just didn't work. Now, they're not anarchists, but they're like, well, why not try fascism? Why not try, a dictator? Why not try that out? Because shit, I'm unhappy and I need something. Penguin, you got something?
That was fascism. That was fascism the first time. I'm not talking about Nazism, but Nazism is, as far as a lot of it being a reaction to Bolshevism, which is something we could talk about. But like before that, just the reaction to sort of liberal politics not working in many cases, or not delivering, or not being genuine. Just the fakeness, just the interest groups and the wheeling and dealing, the politics being just overall ineffectual, the checks and balances not working, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that was an argument where people that were liberal or libertarian or more left-hinged anarchist became actually, I think a lot of people of those bents, like a lot of anarchists, became fascists, from what I understand. And I'm a little unclear on the history. This is like European history, and this is like arcane European history. So I'm not 100% sure, but I know at least one time, I believe a friend of the show, I believe it was a friend of the show, CJ Kilmer actually was featured a essay or something about, a short biography episode about a guy that was like that, basically some sort of liberal libertarian of I forgot what or something that became fascist, and I forgot what the whole context, but it was very enlightening at the time. Sort of helped build a certain view of that. I do think we're actually entering a and I definitely encourage anybody to go and try to look that up in the catalogs. I can't exactly remember
Well,
too many of
it
the
goes like
details.
this. Fascism came out, or fascism proper in the 20s,
Mhm.
came out of like the syndicalist movement. And a lot of
Okay.
syndicalists were anarchist, but then theories developed and like a term was coined called national syndicalism, which was no longer like anarchist. So they broke with the anarchists and the socialists, and they sort of built this new thing. And so, yes, but they stopped being anarchists because for various reasons.
I mean, definitely,
But
but yeah, no, it's still a very interesting phenomenon. Okay, but I was going to say, like, I mean, I definitely think we're entering not post-liberalism. I mean, we all see it, like it's all being understood that sort of the liberal ideals are breaking down, and people like what's next, because like politics are just not satisfying. People don't find it genuine. People don't really trust that what's going on is genuine. People don't trust the news. People don't trust what they're hearing, what people's coming out of the mouths of politicians and officials, stuff like that. And that's become so commonplace now. So we're definitely entering post-liberalism, and people saying, look, if someone like Trump can get results, then maybe there's some good to be had. And I always thought that was the big difference. I mean, you're mentioning what's different about Trump. I don't think he's uniquely different. I think there's a lot of pros and cons to sort of each president's ability to like wield power. I think Trump has a lot of drawbacks that also hold him back. They're just different limitations than, like, say, Joe Biden or a Barack Obama administration would have had. I mean, for every like strength that Trump may have, I think there's a lot of people that are really, really fucking hate his guts, and B, a lot of skepticism. Just a lot of skepticism of the guy, a lot of institutional desire to like restrain the guy off of everything he does, even when it's like, oh, well, this kind of sucks, but the president seems to actually constitutionally have this power, which is a really tough place. It's one of those issues are always very tough for me. But long story short, I think the difference between Trump and other presidents is I guess, like, compared to at least Biden and to some extent other presidents, I guess just Obama, we got to Bush and it gets a little different, but he has the ability to, but especially in contrast to Biden, he has the ability to do stuff, like to get stuff done. Like, he actually says things. It's not just the machine, the momentum, the machinery of government, the institutions. It's not just like ruled by NGOs and institutions and just the government kind of running itself. I mean, it's not even a matter of Biden being having dementia, but it's so comical that he did, and the machinery of state just sort of ran itself. It was sort of just coasted on its own momentum, but it's sort of it's very much in contrast to that. It's very much like, yeah, I mean, the man wants to do something, he can do it. Things can happen, like kind of almost with the Gaza thing. It was like, I mean, Trump, Biden administration, and by assumption, like a continuation through Kamala Harris, like they're just institutionally so tied to supporting Israel as the United States has for like 650 years or so. And there seems to be some sort of ideological commitment through international liberalism of the modern sense. But Trump would actually be willing to break, and he would be willing to do something. I don't know. It's just like he doesn't run the country by sort of the machinery of it. I mean, just a country where the state sort of, I guess this is kind of the disillusionment with, I mean, maybe I'm thinking in almost a stream of consciousness here, but like this is kind of the disillusionment people have with so-called liberal like democracy, is that it's almost like not even liberal democracy. I mean, how much do you actually, how much do you as a voter actually have a say? It's sort of the machinery of state just running itself for its own interests. I mean, the state has its own interests. It's not even interest groups anymore. It's the state having its own interests and just perpetuating various programs and just having a couple different factions battling back and forth, and there's always a very real chance of one faction. There's always the threat of one faction, because there's one limiting factor of this thing is you have competing factions or competing political parties. There's always the threat of one faction just getting runaway control, which I don't know, there's maybe some sort of natural checks and balances for. But yeah, the idea of it's just a state just sort of runs itself on its own power. There is no executive. Like, as much as we want a constrained executive in checks and balances, the idea that a state that doesn't have a strong executive where it just runs itself is also equally scary to me.
Well, I mean, Trump is, a clear-cut case that cocaine can take you very far. Like a kilo of cocaine can really get things done. So, anyway. Sec, what do you got?
No, I would just say that this is the idea of the state just running itself. That's just, I would say that's always how it's been. That's how it's been all along. I just think that more people, it's more blatantly obvious now, and more people are aware of that. And also, the institutions just don't work for people anymore. It's like we traded a lot of things away for material comfort and material stability, and now we don't even have that. So people are like, well, what the fuck was all of this for, You're
sounding like a far-right reactionary there, Zach.
No, I mean, there was a time
they're always posting about. That's literally what the racists are always posting about. But like, that's that weird convergence. I know I'm just being funny, but that's that weird convergence, right?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, so listen, like, you traded away a lot of things, but you had a job where you worked 40 years and got a pension, and you could live on one income. You know what I'm saying? We're now, so that was the trade-off. You trade away a significant amount of autonomy, I would say, and the state was doing a lot of nefarious things at the time, but people didn't give a shit because they had their car and they had their house in the suburbs and all of these things. Basically, we were paid off. Now the payout isn't even there, so people are looking around like, well, what is any of this for then? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even getting that now, so what am I getting? And people are just generally dissatisfied overall. I guess my question, then we can move on to something else, and I'm sorry I derailed this entire conversation, but or our topic, do we think like this guy is a unique evil, or let's not say evil, is he uniquely fascist, or is just fascism is the water that we're in? You know what I mean? Like, and this is just another step on the path. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think uniquely, but I think the whole thing. Look, Trump, you're both landing on something here. Trump 2 is not the same as Trump 1. There is a huge difference between in Trump 2 and Trump 1. Trump 1 was very unpopular. He was seemingly erratic. He had these ties to white nationalists. Like, he was very unpopular. Like, he was he had all the intelligence agencies against him. He had all the media against him and all this stuff. I mean, they really were. I mean, I know this sounds like sort of the MAGA whole litany of complaints, but like, this is, I mean, it was true. I mean, they were just, you turn on the news and every night it's just anti-Trump. Every single 17 intelligence agencies have said Trump has done some shit that he didn't do anyway with Russia or whatever, all that stuff. I mean, and a lot of the stuff I learned after the fact, because I wasn't interested in finding out like, oh, they're lying about Trump, which, I mean, it sucks when they're lying about, it sucks when that happens, because it's like, it's a competing and potentially stronger faction, and this is at the time, of like the state that it has the capacity to do a lot of harm. So long story short,
it made him more popular. All that made him more popular.
Yes. It's funny how bad they were at this. Yes, absolutely.
Right. Because I don't think the institutions and the 3-letter agencies understood how unpopular they were. So by attacking him, it just made him look like the good guy or something. You know what I mean? When
it's total hubris. It's total hubris, and in all the lawsuits over every last little thing, the stretching. I mean, when they say like lawfare, like this, I mean, some of this stuff was really flimsy, and especially compared to I mean, I hate to sound like one of these Republicans, but like some of the open corruption coming out of the Biden campaign. I mean, but Joe Biden's son was the head of That just it's sorted. It's very sorted, and it's funny how there weren't hearings on that, but there were hearings on all sorts of collusion and crap like that with Russia, which there was ties with different people and everything. I do understand there were people, they were registered agents and this and that and the other, and there still are. They're all throughout government that they that's one of the jobs they do. They lobby for foreign governments. But no, Trump, Russia did not hack the election. And what's worse, what's so sad about that, there is a lot of manipulation that comes from Russia and other countries, but like with so much of that is lost because of just the kind of people that were lying. CIA officers and former CIA officers and NSA officials, the people that we trust the very least. The kind of, I mean, this is really the whole thing about where, like, I just talking to liberals, I would always fall into this kind of like MAGA zone, because like just the type of Democrat that hated Trump the most and that was so enraged by him was just the very most centrist, very most like pro CIA kind, pro State Department kind of person. Just the person that loves the instant, just a very, very Beltway. And obviously I have some proximity to the Beltway, so it's not too surprising that I might have those interactions. But yeah, it's just, the very kind of person that goes on NPR or the Sunday morning shows that I don't watch because I don't have to watch TV, but the kind of person that is uniquely enraged by Donald Trump. Neoconservatives and centrist Democrats, often like the person that's now at this point running for, I think, the Virginia governor, the former CIA officer, and it's all like that over here. They're all former Navy intelligence, because I live in a Navy town, so it's all former Navy intelligence or former CIA, and there's also CIA over here. That's just a fact. That's what Virginia politics are like. That's your Democrats for you, and the Republicans are a grab bag. I mean, it's not much better. The kind of businessmen and so forth that are on the Republican side. But yeah, your Democrats are all usually like Navy intelligence and CIA and or CIA, very commonly here. I don't know where I'm ranting with that, but the point is, Trump 2 is very different. Trump 2 has a lot of legitimacy, he had popular legitimacy. He has a mandate to do different things. I mean, there's a lot changed in the 4 years of Biden and everything. He was popular. I get that. But he also has the backing of Silicon Valley, and that part is freaking creepy. That part is very creepy. I'm not a fan of Silicon Valley. I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. I don't like aesthetically. I don't like them. I don't like their philosophy in life. I don't like their vision. And I think what is additionally scary about that is sort of in America, like stuff is still decentralized. This is still, things are pretty decentralized in this country. You still have some freedom there in the gaps to do stuff. I mean, if we go down the path of the China model or the Qatar or, UAE, Saudi Arabia model, where everything is completely sort of, everything is a walled garden of security, just public safety and public order is just completely 100% the priority of the state, where everything is just completely nerfed and there's just no allowable discourse, there's no allowable internet content, there's no allowable anything outside of what the state permits. And the state might be rather permissive on some things, but also restrictive on other things, maybe things that are crucially, threatening to the state and a certain agenda, or crucially critical to a certain group of officials, or the security apparatus and whatnot. But this we don't want to go into the Gulf model, and we don't want the China, which is similar to the China model, which is public order above public order and public harmony among all else. That's where you get the totalitarianism, and that's something that Silicon Valley is uniquely able to sort of provide and build the infrastructure for.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, Penguin, I love that you basically prove that Langley is the capital of the United States. Yeah, as far as to sex, I mean, I agree with so much of what Penguin said, and the concerns around Silicon Valley, and I think that's it. Like, as far as like, is Trump a unique evil? He's unique in the sense that he's well trained in professional wrestling. And I don't mean in like taking bumps or like, doing double axe handles or things like that. He really, really, really knows how to play the crowd, emotions, all that stuff. I mean, he's phenomenal at that. But he did I think he's more just inheriting, like, again, this framework that's been getting built for at least the past 25 years. And that's, and we think about him more again because of that. I'll say that pro wrestling training. But that's the real difference. And I mean, and the last point I'll make on it is that, the executive, legislative, the senatorial, like those three branches of government. I mean, the way I see it, they're like level 3 of power. There's a level 2 above them and a level 1 above that. And so all of that is level 3. That doesn't mean they don't have power. They do. But that would just be my point, is that it's still like, even being concerned about him is not like striking the root ultimately. And that's what I got. Go for it, Zach.
Yeah. So basically this has just been a long time coming, and now we're here. Yeah. That's been my first instinct with him. And then just some recent developments made me go, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe there's something uniquely awful coming down the road, or maybe he's accelerating it. I don't know, but it just seems like a lot of awful
We've covered
things
it here.
Short amount of time,
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, right.
What?
Go ahead.
What'd you say, Penguin?
I said we covered it here when Trump was elected. I mean, he had obviously all the woke stuff goes away, and he has the backing of so many tech guys, some of the biggest names in tech, obviously. Just right away actually, as soon as he wins the election, actually well before the inauguration. I mean, and it's very clear that something was up, something was brewing.
Yeah. I mean, and again, like I really think even that, like, Elon Musk is the guy running so much, and what's going on in Elon Musk's head. I think there's probably a computer in there, and I mean a literal one. And look at the scars under his ear. Anyway, I'll leave that with that one.
His mind is more machine now than man.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mostly agree. It's just, there's been a few concerning things in the past few months that really, I really didn't like. And also, like, he fucked up the economy and my business took a hit. So fuck him for that. But
yeah, I mean, he was supposed to eliminate the income tax. When you implement tariffs, you're supposed to get rid of a tax, and he didn't do that. He said he might, but yeah, right.
I know he said he might, and everybody I knew was like, no, listen, we're gonna get the tariffs and the income tax. Okay, that's how that's gonna work. And you're not getting rid of the income tax,
No.
But, okay, so at the risk of, if we don't have any more on that, at the risk of not getting to our central topic this time, I've got two related things that are of concern, or one of that is of concern. I wanted to talk about anti-Semitism and also eugenics, which are obviously related to our topic on fascism, but is not getting to the central, or maybe it is. It's not exactly. Very topical, but not exactly what we were going to talk about.
Well, let's make it a trilogy.
It's like well within my podcast listening too. It's just so funny about that. Not surprising at all, obviously, because we listen to the same shit. But not in all cases, though.
So yeah, a lot of folks are talking about a rise in anti-Semitism, and honestly, I'm certainly seeing it. Now the question is was it always there and now we're just seeing it, or is there an actual increase in anti-Semitism? And if it's the latter, I blame both the Zionists and the anti-Semites. They're both equally responsible for this.
I mean, obviously, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, let me explain. So from, I don't know, the past several decades, as long as I can remember, the Zionists, specifically Likud, have been stating that we represent the Jews. What it means to be Jewish is what we do. We are the state for the Jews everywhere on the planet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're certainly, Benjamin Netanyahu has been making a lot of statements like that. So like any attack on us is an attack on Jews, and then if you criticize Israel at all, then you are an anti-Semite. And so you start conflating the actions of Mossad and the Israeli government with Jews. That's very fucking dangerous. This is like Osama bin Laden's logic. You know what I mean? Like to conflate the actions of the U.S. government with the Americans, and then that was his justification for attacking the Twin Towers. So this is the same kind of logic. So if you get people around the world that see the actions of, I mean, man, I'm seeing babies starving to death. Okay, like just awful, awful shit. Man, I saw the other day. I had a lump in my throat for a while just seeing just babies headless babies. And so you got a government that's committing acts like that, and then saying that we are what it means to be Jewish. Well, I mean, it's not right. I'm not saying it's justified, and it's actually stupid to come to the conclusion that, well, this is what Jews do, right? But a lot of people are stupid, and they can't differentiate themselves that there's a difference between, a government and an intelligence agency and a military and people more broadly. But the end result of that is potentially very scary, because there's going to be a lot of people who look at that and say, well, if that's what it means to be Jewish, then fuck the Jews is what it's going to be the end result of that. And that's very fucking dangerous. And Brian, you know the history as well as any of us on how this shit goes sideways fast. You want to talk about Europe and
Sure.
And Russia. I mean, this shit goes bad fast. And I think the Israeli government is playing right into it. And I think they benefit from anti-Semitism. I think they're fine with anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more people, Jews feel scared around the world, the more people will come to Israel. Is what they're thinking is, at least. And
I mean, there was always a strain of that for its entire existence. Yeah.
And you want to talk about, okay, so there's all this talk about, well, the Jews have lived there forever. You know what Israel does to the Jews that have lived there forever? I just saw it the other day that in Jerusalem, there's been a community of Jews. They're now Hasidic. I don't know when the Hasids came about. Brian could probably inform us on that. But there's been a community of Jews in Jerusalem since before Christ. They're still there. Still there. You know what happened the other day on the Israeli Independence Day? They came out and protested against the state of Israel. And the state of Israel busted their heads, basically, and stuffed them in vans and shot tear gas at them and whatever else. So I don't know where I was going with that, but in some weird way, the state of Israel is like weirdly anti-Semitic in a lot of weird ways. And then you had this other fellow, and I can't remember his name. He's an American Zionist. And he says the other day, we are the masters of the universe. Why is the opinion on Israel changing? We control all of social media and the media. And he starts mentioning people like Zuckerberg and couple other guys with Jewish names that are in social media and fucking media. And I'm like, are you out of your goddamn mind? What are you doing? Listen, number one, like, if the craziest neo-Nazi said that to you, you'd be like, what, are you fucking out of your mind? That's the most fucking anti-Semitic shit I've heard in a while. And it's coming from Zionists. And so, like, you want to make the statement that the Jews control all the social media and the media, and we need to use that to change the narrative and opinions of people. Are you fucking out of your mind? I heard that.
The cat's out of the bag now, but that's something they've had the capability of doing essentially for
that. No, the thing is, the opinion on Israel is changing. They've had the worst approval of Israel that they've ever had right now, because people are like I are seeing children crushed under rubble or beheaded or in pieces in their father's arm. I'm a father, man. You know what I mean? Like, or literally right now, because of the blockade, they're starving to death. You're seeing Palestinian children, like the pictures you saw of people in Africa, just completely emaciated. And so, like, of course, people see that and they're like, well, what the fuck? It's not because they are losing control of the narrative, but for a Zionist to come out and say, like, we control all the fucking media. Are you out of your, you don't think that's going to play into anti-Semitism? Are you out of your goddamn mind? You're going to get people fucking.
But up until now, they do control the media. They do control the.
Don't.
I mean, let's just. Well, they do. I mean, there's a huge upper representation, but there's a huge over. But I think we should not underscore how many conventionally Jewish by ethnicity, religion, etc. people have been in government and academia and entertainment, and I'm not for any particular conspiracy. I mean, how did they get there? I'm sure there's some amount of nepotism, but a lot of it's just because
they have a culture
so-called merit. Yeah, so-called merit. I mean, I absolutely think, but they're there. Let's not overstate how much is just assumed.
Okay, so to say that. So listen, it's a different thing to say that there is a lot of Jews in academia and writing and etc. That's true. But that doesn't mean like there's still I would call that a significant plurality. They're not, the majority of people in those positions. They're a large plurality. But to say that they control the media is nuts. And honestly, like, this is as crazy as a conspiracy theorist I never fell into the Jews control stuff, because I was literally reading like the words of the elites, and they were all wasps to a man, and they all were wildly anti-Semitic. And because at the time, a lot of these wasps that controlled fucking everything, by the way, all the industry, the media, everything, they were concerned because they had Jewish immigrants had come over from Eastern Europe at the time. And after a certain amount of time, they got established and they started coming into their industries. And so all, Ford, fucking Rockefeller, JP Morgan, all of them, like, just wildly, all this, like, the Jews control stuff literally comes from the WASP elite themselves, because they were concerned about competition in their industries. Henry Ford, what's the guy that stole Tesla's work? Edison, wildly fucking anti-Semitic. He's like, oh my God, the Jews. He controlled like 90% of the electric and the inventions or whatever. But he's worried about, the Jews are coming into my industry now, so they control everything. Meanwhile, he controlled everything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but at the time, Jews were recent immigrant ethnic, so we're Italian, so we're Irish. I get it. Germans were at some point. Germans were the huge threat at some point. But I'll say, then we entered a time where there was a huge amount of Jewish people that came up, and eventually in the 60s, I would say, in the 60s and the 70s and so forth, thoroughly integrated and obviously excelled because they have a culture of excellence. But I will say, it's not just exactly that there's obviously, like you say, there's not like a majority or plurality of actual Jewish people, because there's a smaller number. But it was sort of, there was a complicit. I mean, there was obviously a various factions in the U.S. who was complicit with people. Look, a lot of Jews are very left-wing. I mean, Israel was founded as a left-wing state, but I mean, there was aligned with the Soviet Union more than the United States. But a lot of Jews there's a lot of anti-Zionist Jews. There's a lot of Jews led the civil rights movement. There was a huge rift with that, obviously. That's a whole other story. But I'm not saying that every Jewish person, even in this category, is like a hardcore, just ethnically cleansed the Palestinians. That's not the case. That's not what the Jewish people have traditionally, ideas that the Jewish people have traditionally pushed. I mean, there are various people. For every Ben Shapiro, there's a, Noam Chomsky or whatever. I mean, I assume he's Jewish. Bernie Sanders or whatever you want to call it. Like, there's a lot of different Jews with a lot of different opinions, a lot of different versions of a Jewish identity, for sure, from ethnic to religious to Zionist. But I will say there's there's enough fire there and enough complacency, enough admiration. I don't know what it is, but the idea that, like, you cannot criticize the state of Israel to the point where they're passing these laws. I mean, Christian Zionism, it's a mystery to me. It's always been a huge thing between me and my family, talking about the Christian church in the 20th century and how that, because I have family that was Christian. And I've recounted that before on this pod. But yeah, I mean, the idea that, like, yeah, they made it illegal to not to criticize Israel. They're, this whole idea that so many Americans, usually even older age demographics, were fine with deporting these people that are legal immigrants for criticizing Israel, and these guys for protesting their all these laws that have been going on and on and on, for making it illegal in these different states to boycott Israel. I mean, something's up with that. And I don't think Jews of a certain bent are certainly not controlling all the institutions and media, because I think Jews are there's a lot of there's Jews in Jews dominate almost every single political organization of every single different ideology. It's actually goes against the Jewish conspiracy to an extent. I mean, it's sort of ridiculous how much Jews excel in so many different fields.
Thank you. No.
yeah. It actually goes against the whole conspiracy thing. The Jews are like left wing and bringing in.
Well, listen, you know why that is?
Do white genocide. I mean, God, they're running the conservatives. Listen, they're running everything. The communists.
You know why? This is why that is. Well, I'll say, maybe somebody can correct me if you want to, but so it's the same reason they dominated boxing when they first came over here. It's because, and I meant to respond to this last conversation we had where Brian said, I don't know why the Mises Institute is like so much Catholic. There are also a lot of Jews in the Mises.
Well, sure. Ludwig was. Yeah.
And the reason is like the Catholics, the Irish, the Italians, black folks, Jews were not welcome in like what you would call WASP society, like polite society, upper middle class, bougie fucking society. They were really pushed out. So what happens when you're sort of like outside of society in a sense, or like pushed to, you're not in the cool kids club or whatever the thing, you strive to make your own fucking thing. So 100%. Like, yeah. So this is why a lot of like immigrants were attracted to radical politics, including like Jews,
Mm-hmm.
And this is why they built their own institutions, and this is why they entered into like various fields and were just like, I'm going to fucking show you, you know what I mean? So that's why that happens. The same thing happened with the Italians, the Irish, the black, again, black folks, Jews, Catholics. I mean, we forget how Catholic the U.S. was for a long time, and it's because the WASPs controlled everything. Mm-hmm. so they had to prove themselves in a weird way,
Yeah. So let me and I'll do my best to be brief, because I think there's a good and everybody's hit on like very relevant groups that are all a piece. They're all pieces of the puzzle of this. And man, I mean, some of the stuff you shared, Sec, like that's insane. And that statement, well, okay, I guess the first thing I want to say is like, no, Netanyahu does not represent all Jews. I do. So I will gladly speak for all of them. So you brought the idea that the Jews run Hollywood, and that they control the media. So let's go back to what I said earlier about like with Trump, where like the executive branch, legislative branch, all that, where that's level 3. And then there's level 2 and level 1 above that are actually in control. Hollywood is very much the same way, or the entertainment industry is very much the same way, where yes, at level 3, there's tons of Jews, there's tons of us. And this is the problem. And as I go over a little bit of this history, like I think it'll get painted. This is the problem, is that in these statements, there is some truth. The problem is there are things between, there's things to read between the lines that people don't take the time to read between the lines to understand what's being said, or to understand like what else is out there, because when you say, yeah, look, the Jews control Hollywood. Yeah. The Jews started Hollywood. The Jews started the entertainment industry 1,000%. And
What was it? The five Meyer brothers? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and I mean, a lot of people don't remember, but the entertainment industry actually started in New Jersey. That's where, and Edison was anti-Semitic because basically the Jews took the entertainment industry to the other side of the country and like wiped out so much of his investments. Okay. So like his argument, oh, like the Jews are ruining everything. Yeah. In New Jersey, they did, and of course there's still a huge Jewish population in New Jersey. I mean, honestly, just we're everywhere. That's a fact of life. Okay. So, but I want to go back a little bit. We're going to
Jew Jersey.
Jersey.
Jew Jersey. But yeah, sorry.
Oh, Jew Jersey. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I like that. All right. So you mentioned the Hasidim who were being, or the Hasidics who were being brutalized, in Israel. Hasidic Judaism is an absolute threat to Zionism because Hasidic Judaism is basically decentralized Judaism. Now, I mentioned earlier how in most mainstream, there's multiple denominations within Judaism these days, but within mainstream Judaism, like Kabbalah is not taken seriously. The only reason we still have like a lot of Kabbalistic knowledge is because the Hasidim, or the Hasidics, carried it on. And thankfully they did. I'm so grateful for that. Okay. And now I would argue, again, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I would argue that Kabbalah is the true Judaism, and the Hasidics know that. And so they know that they actually don't want Israel. They want a decentralized, this dispersion of the, the spiritual power and whatever else. And that's getting into a bunch of religious stuff. And we don't have to do that here. Okay. But there's a reason the Hasidim are being persecuted. And that's because, again, it's a decentralized Judaism. They stand against the very notion of Zionism itself. And so I'm not surprised that they were protesting at all either, and right on for them to do so. So that was in the 18th century when they started that. Okay.
Now, Israel is also notably a fairly secular society outside of the strictly religious communities. And it was also founded as a explicitly socialist project. It wasn't founded specifically. So, that's very much at odds with the Hasidim and their bent, which is not very modernist or socialist or,
right,
futurist or anything like that. They're very, 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 very conservative to almost an extreme degree. Just look how they dress.
Yeah. Right on. So I think, to speak to just a little more history, to speak to the level 3, level 2, level 1 kind of situation. Okay. The Jews, it may look like, because you get like arguments around crypto Judaism and where they say, like the Jews are all the bankers. Why are all the Jews bankers and everything? Okay. Did the Jews end up becoming bankers through their own merit? No, not true at all. What happened was you basically had the Holy Roman Empire, and they had their own rules that they had to outwardly follow. And so they took a unwashed population, shall we say, that being the Jews, and had the Jews do all their dirty work for them. That's why I use the word unwashed. Okay. And so you have Jews with you have all this Jewish money, you have all these Jewish bankers and everything. And this is simply because they were level 3. They were not level 2. The Catholic Church was level 2. Okay. And so they were using their level 3, shall we say, pawns, and put them in that place. Now, did those level 3 Jews end up with some degree of power and some wealth, perhaps against their level 2 masters? Yes, there's some truth to that. Okay. But this isn't the only situation where this happens. This also occurs. We can go into Nazi Germany. Okay. Probably the best example to have, because, everybody's like, oh, well, but the Nazis, like, this is the pinnacle of anti-Semitism. Actually, the Nazis liked them some Jews. Particularly, we could talk about Fritz Lang. Fritz Lang was a filmmaker, probably best known for making Metropolis in 1927, a phenomenal film, and great one movie that I think what's that, Zach?
Great movie. Just an absolute great movie.
Yeah, phenomenal film. A lot to pull from that. As well as far as understanding how the world works, including at a level 2 level, and maybe even a little level 1. Anyway, Fritz Lang was such a great movie maker at the time that when he was like, holy shit, and his wife, Thea von Boe, she was a full-on Nazi. But Fritz Lang was a Jew, and he's like, well, I'm getting the fuck out of Germany. Look at what's going on here. And the German brass came to him and said, yeah, no, we know you're Jewish. We don't care. We need you to make our movies.
They said, we decide who's Jewish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like, this is the point, is that if you're a useful population or a useful person, level 2 is going to use you. Okay. And they're going to put you in position. Now, I'm not saying, I think when you had, Warner Brothers, all these different groups who end up, bringing water to the desert in the Western US, to end up creating Hollywood and the entertainment industry and all that. I'm not saying that there was some level 2 kind of controlling that. I think that was very much a very real Jewish movement where you have, and the reason they were so successful at it was because, there are persecuted people, especially at that time still. And they wanted to dream of, lives, of worlds, of existences that were better than what they had to deal with. And it was a way of trying to bring that stuff into reality. And there's actually, I'm not going to get into mysticism here, but as Francis Ford Coppola, very brilliantly said, all movies are magic. And he didn't just mean like, ooh, look at the special effects. He meant they were straight up fucking, magic with a K at the end. Okay. Now but that's besides the point. So what you have is like, holy shit, suddenly these Jews who just had some goddamn dreams ended up getting a lot of power. And at the same time, 100% yes, they did create the porn industry. So what? Great. Okay. And I mean that, like, we had America particularly had a huge problem with Puritanism. Okay. And like, I'm forever grateful. The porn industry has its own problems, and I know, I worked in it. Okay. Like I'm not going to necessarily sing its praises, but there needed to be a serious backlash against, what was really happening with Puritanism. Again, that would get into whole kinds of other religious arguments that we don't have to get into here. Okay. So what ends up happening is that the Jews end up getting real power through the entertainment industry, real influence through the entertainment industry. So the argument that that Jews control the media, we control the way people think, wasn't untrue at the time. And the US government very much knew that. And this is the response to that from the US government is McCarthyism. And McCarthyism comes in and basically replaces the seat of power. It brings in the level 2. Okay. It replaces the seat of power of, it being like, horny and, dream-filled Jews in Hollywood. It replaces it with the military industrial complex. Okay. And one can only look at the financing within Hollywood, and you can see just how much the military controls Hollywood, because most movies couldn't be made without military support. So the Jews, so for that guy to make the claim, oh, the Jews run, the entertainment industry. Yes, it looks like it. You look at the names, you look at the families, all that, it very much looks like it. But now those names, when at one point they were like level 2, as far as controlling the entertainment industry, the Jews in the entertainment industry are now level 3. Level 2 would be, alphabet soup organizations, CIA, take your pick, whatever. Okay. So, that's a very short, very oversimplified version of what all this looks like. But the bottom line being is, just like Hitler found Jews useful for controlling the entertainment industry, I think the military or the CIA does as well in the modern US. Penguin, what do you got, man?
That's more or less. I agree with you. That's more or less what I was thinking about the. So I was actually listening to some stuff about the history of the neoconservative movement. So basically, it was the idea that, like, look, actually, a bunch of disaffected Jewish communists just became nominally conservative and steered U.S. policy basically towards redrawing the map of the Middle East and Israeli dominance and ultimately like supremacy, and it actually just happened. And then Iraq got invaded, and so forth and so on. And they were all Jewish. Every single one of those names was a Jewish name. So at some point, it's very real. There's a real, but you're totally right. How did that happen? The thing is, like, how does that happen? It also just that coincided with other goals that other people had, real serious interests, institutions, and very powerful people, but institutions, especially corporations, government, whatever. Just institutions.
Yeah.
broadly. It's like that coincided. As nobody could say, hey, look, these 15 Jewish think tankers that grew up in Brooklyn that now have been trying to basically steer U.S. policy towards, Israeli dominance of the Middle East and in multiple wars and invasions and so forth. Like, that's obviously coincides with the interest of other multitudes of powerful people, corporations, institutions, what have you.
Yeah, I mean, there'd be no
like
Israel,
randomly they're just all this power,
Yeah, there'd be no Israel without the British Empire. I mean, that's just it. I mean, I consider Israel, the state of Israel, to be like a level 3 player. They're not level 2, they're not level 1. And so to answer Sex's question, I mean, like, has anti-Semitism always been there? Or like, is it actually growing now and it went away for a little while and now it's back? I mean, I think it's an undercurrent that's just always been there. And part of that is because Jews have just always been, or have often been, like this level 3 player to do the dirty work.
Yeah, but also you can't connect it directly with historical anti-Semitism. I mean, there is something unique going on right now that it looks like, hey, if you criticize these dead babies, you're going to lose you're going to be kicked out of college. You might, if you're an immigrant, you might go to be detained. You can't boycott this. You can't write in a newspaper against this. Like, it is, you can't go on NBC News necessarily. I don't know, maybe you can't. I mean, Fox News has even had people like reporting critical. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's enough to make people pause and be like, wait a minute, why I can't boycott this? Like, I have to pay for this. I have to pay for this with my tax dollars. Like, come on. Like, so it's not 100%, but nothing is 100%, but it's creepy. You have to look at it in the context. Also, you have to look at the economy. How much of this is real life and how much of this is on social media, on the internet? Because my entire social media feed is nothing but either Jewish supremacists. Well, it's Jewish supremacists because the algorithm is designed to rage bait you, obviously.
Yeah.
So my algorithm is like hardcore racism and anti-Semitism, and for various reasons, and hardcore extreme like pro-Israel stuff because it's trying to bait me, and the other stuff is controversial. I do follow some right-wing stuff, but also it's like, and then sometimes they go back and forth, and there's a whole bunch of like algorithmic manipulation going on here.
Well,
but yeah, like a lot of this stuff is also just on the internet. If you're not going out and walking down the street talking about like, hey, Hitler had some great ideas, yeah, right on. But like, I get that, like, that does bleed into real life as well, but it's not exactly at that point.
Yeah, so you're hitting at, absolutely, and so you're hitting at what I think is line number 2 from that American Zionist guy, and I agree with Sex's assessment. Like, what the hell are you doing saying that stuff? I mean, it's so baiting, and well, it's also wrong because, again, like, no, like, yes, are there Jews that seem to be at the top of all these aspects of the media and entertainment and everything? Yep, but like I said, they're level 3, they're not level 2. Okay, now the Mark Zuckerberg controlling social media, like he controls the message, that is absolutely not true. That is provably untrue. And the reason I say that is provably untrue is what you're bringing up, Penguin, is that he can't control the algorithm. Like, the reason that he was happy to let go of the reins when Trump came into power and said, like, all right, no more censorship and all that stuff, is because they knew they were failing at it. And eventually there was going to be class action lawsuits, all kinds of stuff that would genuinely disrupt that power. Okay, Mark Zuckerberg does not have control of Facebook. He knows he doesn't have control of Facebook. Yes, he has control of the company, but he doesn't have control of the flow of information on these things. He also doesn't have, I mean, they can use broad swaths where, and we saw this with Threads when that first launched, where they were just like saying, okay, anytime this keyword shows up, delete the post. And reporters were coming out in droves saying, what the hell? Like, even right-wing ones were like, why is my shit getting, shadow banned or deleted or whatever? And it's because they cannot control these algorithms. So the idea, the claim that like somehow social media is under any kind of control, not true. I mean, is there like a pull the plug on a platform? Is there a broad swath thing where you can do, again, where you can like ban keywords or certain hashes and things like this? Yes, those do exist. But those are, those are basically like, nukes against the needle in the haystack. I mean, like it's way too blunt an instrument for what they want to do. They don't have control of these things. So this guy is like way off and making a claim that, again, just enrages anti-Semitism, or just make the rage more.
One thing I've noticed also is that, I mean, because there has been so much of a consensus around Israel and so forth. I don't know. I kind of theorize why. So I've noticed a lot of the pro-Zionist, pro-Jewish, essentially like outright Jewish, supremacist stuff. I guess that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. So much of the pro-Zionist, pro-Israel stuff is dumber and dumber than I've ever seen it be before. It's really low IQ. I see some of the dumbest slop on social media, and even more intellectual. The more intellectual types are still, like, compared to before, they're not exactly intellectual heavyweights defending this stuff. I mean, it's pretty dumb. I mean, it's actually like pretty dumb for Jews.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I think that message. Or go ahead.
I don't know. Maybe the intellectual powers all on the other side, because Jews have always been very pro, rights, some human rights and stuff too. So I don't know I can't theorize, but I've definitely noticed distinctly that it's dumber than before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing. I want to go to SEC here in a second, but I'll just say, like, I'm seeing the shift of now, like, from a lot of shall we say, pro-Zionist groups. They're talking about jihadism. They're not like labeling specific countries or even specific groups. They're just like, you don't understand the Middle Eastern mind, which is true. That's an accurate statement to make. Again, all these things, these claims, there's little grains of truth in it, right? That's how the best lies work. But now they're just making this claim against jihadism overall.
It's getting dumber and dumber than that.
Yeah.
I'm saying on the cutting edge of social media, and what bleeds over into real life, but it's getting dumber than that. It's getting worse. It's getting dumber. It's getting low class. It's getting low IQ, and it's just if you look at the demographic trends, I'm sorry, nobody under 40 is supporting Israel, no matter how right wing you are. And when you get to over 70, it kind of sucks because you're not going to be around the earth much longer. But there's people just solidly. But if Republicans, my God, they are ride or die.
Yeah.
You'll go out the country, and some guy will have his whole farm festooned with Israeli flags. I've seen it. It's ridiculous.
It's insane.
And that's something that happened for 2 generations in this country, and it's not Jewish, because that guy's not Jewish. I mean,
no.
What is it?
Right.
I can't even begin to explain it. Really, I really can't.
Right. Zach, what do you got, man? You've been awfully quiet. Thank you.
No, I think it's just a matter of the fact that they're losing the narrative. Like you said, nobody under 40 supports Israel anymore, including Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you poll, people over 55 or 60 or whatever, then sure, most Republicans over 55 still support Israel, but all the young people don't, and the young people are the ones seeing all the footage coming out of Gaza.
And the angle they do have to try to, I just want to say, the angle they do have that they were trying to use to shore up support on the right for Israel was trying to kind of map it onto like domestic left-right politics and the culture war. That was the only thing they had. Nobody supports Israel for any of the, reasons necessarily. I mean, this was always present, but nobody supports Israel for any of the other reasons that were, historically in the 20th century and up to recently kind of tied to that.
Fair, yeah. But I think this is what you're seeing is like, people thrashing out because they understand that they're losing the narrative. Oh, that was the other thing that the fellow I said, the Zionist there, that said that we are the masters of the universe or whatever. He also said if we lose this narrative, we will never be able to put American forces anywhere on the world again if we lose this narrative. So
great.
Yeah, it sounds great to me. But do you understand how desperate that makes certain people? You know what I mean? Like, so what you're seeing with all this dumb stuff and kill them all and all that kind of stuff, it's just like the last gasps of a desperate animal lashing out. It's I think that's good. But
clearly,
like I was saying before, and the sort of the point of this is like, I think all of this is fueling anti-Semitism, and it's probably, it might be a real fucking concern. Like, how concerned are you, Brian? And, like, this is the reason I wanted you to remember the Black Plague. During the Black Plague, Jews weren't getting sick at the same rate as the other people.
Right.
And obviously that's because they were witches, right? And
Yeah.
reptiles.
It's not because there's like a religious mandate to wash their hands. No.
That's because they washed their hands. Exactly.
Yeah.
And people didn't understand that at all. And nobody washed anything, you know? So,
Right.
but yeah, they washed their hands so they didn't get as sick as the rest of the, now here's the thing. It's like, compare that then to today, right? So like people were watching their family members die. And then they saw these people over here who weren't dying. And well, obviously they're witches. But now we're watching people die, man. And it's quite clearly the fault of the Israeli government. Like it's not just because they're not getting the Black Plague. There's a clear cause and effect here. Like this side is dropping bombs on this children, and you're seeing it with your own eyes. So people are watching people die, and over there, people are watching their family members die. Bro, like this is not. I'm pretty concerned. Like on the one hand, I'm like, all right, good. Israel is like losing the narrative, so there's that. But on the other side, man, like I don't know, you got to worry about the backlash too. You know what I mean? Like that's something to be really fucking concerned about. You know, for the same reason, like we should be concerned about like Islamic terrorism in the U.S. Why? Because we've been supporting a genocide in Gaza this whole time. And so like this is obviously, it's not backlash. What's the word for it? Blowback.
Yeah.
Blowback. Yeah.
Right. Blowback. This was the reason that Osama bin Laden declared war on the United States in the late 90s, is because of what was happening in Gaza.
Yeah, to the extent I want to add, and I just learned this from Dave Smith. So I mean, Jewish guy.
Okay. What do you think the result of this is going to be, though? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't know. There's a lot of bad that can still come out of this, is what I'm saying. And are you actually concerned about anti-Semitic? Not that there's going to be pogroms in the United States necessarily, but Jesus, you know what I mean?
Well,
yeah, Penguin, what do you got? What did Dave Smith say? And then I'll respond to that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was gonna say no. It's kind of lost now, but like basically to the extent that like two of the hijackers from 9/11, they had, when they wrote their wills and the will to when they planned to die, I'm sure the plan wasn't fully formulated, but when they wrote their wills to die, they did it the day after a huge massacre.
The kind of massacre.
Yeah. I don't know, in Lebanon, I believe, of many. I mean, there was footage. So there was footage. There was color footage of like dismembered children, dead children, dismembered children, and this was published. This was spread around. This was in the 90s. So now let's see what's going on in Gaza that's kind of unique. Well, we have everybody. I don't care how much of one thing I don't care how much of a quote unquote like so-called shithole you live in, or a war zone, an absolute war zone, like a full-on refugee situation. Everybody has smartphones. Everybody has internet access. Everybody has 1080p now. I mean, we're talking about everybody has full-on smartphones with plenty of resolution, plenty of memory. Everything can be recorded hundreds of times over, and we live in a day and age where you just don't kill this many people. You just don't kill this many children. It's just not tolerated. And the Israelis are basically, they are basically like supremacists, and they've been built up because of the history has been unqualified support. And I think that unqualified support, like we said, there's a lot of motivations of a lot of different parties that are coinciding with those decades of support for the state of Israel. There's unqualified support for the state of Israel, mostly unqualified, and certainly more unqualified than supporting anyone else. Unqualified and relatively uncritical support. But like at this point, like you can't do that. You can't do that in 1080p. It just won't work. People don't have a tolerance for that, especially knowing their tax dollars pay for that, especially knowing that like this can actually be stopped tomorrow by the United States government, by the Trump regime or the Biden regime before that, and they don't do it. I mean, actually, I don't know if it actually could be stopped. I mean, honestly, it might get a little bit worse before it gets better, given the fact that, I mean, I think Netanyahu and the rest of them know that they're going to be back in the corner if there's a pivot here. But long term, they were always going to have to do this. Now is now and never.
Yeah.
I mean, the support, long-term prospects for support for the state of Israel, unqualified support to do something that no other country could do at this scale, was always going to go away. The polling, I mean, they have access, they have the ability to hire enough consultants and crunch the numbers and do the polling. We all knew that was going to be over. So, well, that's kind of been sort of fueling this. They've sat on Gaza for a long time. To the credit of Israelis, like, I think they had to, they didn't know what to do. They were ambivalent. What do we do? Do we pull out the settlers from Gaza? Do we give these people some qualified statehood? Do we make an agreement? Do we just let them? And what they did is basically just let them chill. They just didn't know what to do because, and what's gotten more extreme in Israel is that more and more leftists and then more and more liberals and more moderates have just died out, having less children and whatever demographic shifts have occurred. And now they're extremely militaristic and extremist because of sort of varying birth rates between the leftists, between liberals, or at least between conservatives, and obviously the Hasidim and everything too. So you have a much demographically, as you go through lower age cohorts, you have a much more extreme population in their views of wanting to kill the Arabs 100%.
Yeah.
And that's a weird phenomenon that's gone in Israel, is that I think that like they were very, there was a lot of ambivalence about how to treat the Palestinians, even when there was real armed Palestinian resistance, people hijacking and taking people hostage and killing Israelis. Even then, there was like, hold on, do we want to go and come up with a final solution on these people? But at this point, the demographics are such that, those people are less and less of the population every year, and the politics becomes more favorable towards a more extreme view.
Yeah. I mean, and you're raising a great point, Penguin, because there's optics. Like, the optics are so different than they were even 20 years ago, because like to answer Seth's question, I mean, what are my concerns? Am I like worried that I'll get attacked at some point, or, and I mean, I wear what would be called Jewish iconography very often, so, and I'm obviously, somewhat, level Y or Z, maybe public figure. And I'll say this. So when I was in the US Army and I was overseas, and I've said this many times, like, anytime I was walking around wearing my Star of David, nobody cared. Like, nobody gave a shit, but boy, anytime I had that American flag on, when I had that American flag patch on, people had a problem then. Like, that was an issue. Now, this is, we're talking 2002, 2003, 2004, that's a very different time, honestly, than what we live in now. So, should the concern be greater? Because, like you're saying, Penguin, how like the optics are just so different. Like, you're seeing the tragedy, you're seeing the inhumanity, you're seeing all of this, and it's unavoidable. I can't say that I feel that concerned. I do think where I do have a concern is, I mean, I'm not, like, the state of Israel can get dismantled tomorrow, and I've been very public about, my desire for that. So, those are people who are going to feel some heat from, shall we say, anti-Semitism. Okay. My other concern is, and this is so bad because, like Seth mentioned, you have the Hasidim who are getting persecuted by the Israeli government, but then the first people who are going to get attacked, if there was like this widespread, more anti-Semitic, these more widespread anti-Semitic actions around the world, the first people that are going to get attacked are the Hasidim, because they're the ones that are very, like, you look at them and you're like, oh yeah, they're different. They're Jewish. They have the telefine, they have the funny curls, and all this stuff. Right. And when they're the ones that actually aren't the problem, they want to be left alone. Like they want their own little power structure, their own little thing. They want to be over here. They don't give a shit, about, they don't want the state of Israel either. And that's a shame. So I do worry about that. Beyond that, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's so, like, who's a Jew? Like, it can be tough to tell, even unless you do DNA tests on everybody, which is another concern when it comes to this digital ID that we talked about.
Wikipedia.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because, sure, like you could say I look like a white guy, but DNA wise, I'm Middle Eastern, and so how do you even, but if people didn't know who I was and I wasn't wearing, or showing signs of being Jewish, I don't know that people would even think it, would even like think twice about it. So it becomes, yeah, like I think there's a greater concern again because of greater optics. But ultimately, I think Jews at the same time have the opportunity to be outspoken voices, like I try to be, for peace and for, well, I mean, not to get all, corny about it, but for love, connection, like all these other kinds of things. Is the mob going to care about that when the mob comes? Probably not. But that's a whole other scenario, and there's lots of lives that are going to be affected when it comes to that.
Yeah,
but I would say also, there is more. Or go ahead.
I mean, I just want to say that like part of this is like the other side of this when it comes to anti-Semitism is that how much the narrative around anti-Semitism has been, when the concept of anti-Semitism has been so weaponized. Against people criticizing these things, against, I mean, how just so much criticism, like there's this epic of anti-Semitism, and it's like, I mean, at some point, I don't know if this is even the angle that I'm most worried about, but you could say that, hey, they're crying, all this crying wolf, and then I don't know what will happen at the end of the day, but it's been so far, with all this power supposedly behind Israel and behind the support of Israel, this institutional power has been actually weaponizing the concept of anti-Semitism. And then eventually people are going to stop caring. Then if you start saying something about anti-Semitism, people are going to just not only ignore you, they're going to vilify you because you're one of these people that's been defending the babies being which is what's happened. They've had these hearings in front of Congress saying the biggest problem isn't while sending over bombs, they're sending over bombs and simultaneously holding hearings saying there's an anti-Semitic, there's a epidemic of anti-Semitism on college campuses, and the Jews feel unsafe. I live in New York and I feel unsafe as a Jew. I don't want to. They're mostly lying.
Yeah, well, again,
also these are outspoken people. It's selected for people that are just propagandists on social media. I get that, but it's going to make people really roll their eyes and then go past the stage of eye rolling to really start to again vilify. It's going to create It's going to create basically a cultural what was the word again?
Blowback.
Blowback.
Yeah, well, that's again where once again the Jews are being used at level 3 for those purposes. Yeah, I think we got to wrap this one up, but Zach, what do you got, man? You want to?
Yeah, no, I got to go too. But no, I just will say there has been a lot of outspoken Jewish voices against Israel, and it's been, and they're losing the opinion of Jews overall. The polls show that, which is great.
Yep.
And I just want to say, I think I'm 90% sure Jeffrey Sachs is Jewish, but he's been a very great outspoken voice against Israel. And he's a guy that talks like Jesse Ventura, but looks like Woody Allen, which is great. It's very funny to me to listen to him, and then I see a picture of the guy, and I'm like, "That's what he looks like." He talks like Jesse Ventura. I don't know. Sorry, but yeah, let's wrap it up there because I'm starting to lose it a little, and I'm getting tired. But thanks for coming on again, Brian. Next time, I swear to God, I won't derail the conversation entirely, and we'll talk about World War II like we were gonna. But
yeah, no, this was all important. No, this is like
I like talking about current events.
Yeah, it was good.
I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was important. So, 100%. And I think it's related to fascism, and it's at least adjacent in a lot of ways. So,
yeah.
All right. If we can talk more about current events, I'm totally down to do it. Honestly, I think because I mean, let's face it. There's an interplay between the stuff that we consume, whether it's in common or also in some cases not in common, and our audience consumes because it's in the discourse, the quote unquote the discourse. But also we share a lot of the same information streams, and I see a lot of those information streams either cross referencing each other or sort of converging because of the discourse. So I'm totally fine to be part of the discourse and then do our historical stuff. You know, I feel like we get caught in the weeds a lot with the historical stuff. So it's good to have a good variety. I really enjoyed it.
Right on.
Yeah, for sure. All right, fellas. Well, you have a good night, and everybody be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Ciao.
Later.
Peace.